You ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Who knows?
Hello, welcome to Voice Notes from the Podcast. Voice Notes from the Podcast. That's the first time I've done that.
That is. And I didn't even distract you.
No, we'll keep that in. Welcome to Voice Notes from the Lab podcast. We are on episode 9 today.
Ooh, big one.
With me, Jack, and
Me, Rosie.
And me, the other Jack.
and today for episode 9, we are delighted to welcome our third guest, Mr. Jon Tonks.
Jon Tonks.
Hi, Jon.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good. Excited to be here.
Obviously. goes without saying. Good to see you guys.
We were just talking about before we were recording. We were talking with you about have you done podcasts before, and you were telling us about during COVID getting stuck on a cruise ship.
Indeed, yeah. I was chatting with Ben Smith on his Small Voice podcast.
Yeah,
and it was a bit of a COVID special because I'd been stuck on a cruise ship in the South Pacific, and I'd just come back from that, so it was sort of a weird introduction into the sort of COVID lockdown.
Yeah, I bet.
And then so I had a wonderful time chatting with Ben about it.
Brilliant. Was that did you do the podcast on the cruise ship?
No,
this was afterwards. Okay.
No, signal would be
Yeah, I was going to say
an absolute luxury.
Brilliant.
No, I'd come back because obviously I'd understood what was happening on the ship at the time, the whole situation. So I tried to sort of make a load of pictures before I came back, and it was one of the only ways I made any money in the start of lockdown, because I'd sort of had this story about one of the last places that didn't have COVID. Was a cruise ship bouncing around the ocean, and then I made the really sensible decision to travel through 4 major airports back to England.
Nice.
Right into
Just to not get it.
right into lockdown. So that was an interesting one.
Brilliant. Could I just get you just to pull the mic in a little bit closer to you? If you just pivot it on its a little bit further.
More.
Yeah,
I'm practically eating it.
That's all right.
Exactly.
You need to be able to taste the foam.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, perfect.
It's delicious.
Cool. So before we we've already had an episode where Jack's sitting there just taking
Stroking.
full mouthfuls. Yeah.
It's like collecting DNA.
Well, before we get into it, how's everyone been? How have you two been?
Been good. Not much has happened.
Not much to report.
No. I'm safely moved into my house.
It's good. For the 4th episode.
Me too.
In a row,
Yeah,
we are now. Both of you have moved house, and everything is good. You're all settled.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'd say.
Have
What
you
about
been-
you? You moved house or?
No.
No.
Right. No.
John moved house anytime soon? Recently?
Nope.
No?
Thinking about it.
Cool.
But,
Well, that's
you know,
nice.
Simon's
No
moving
action.
soon.
Simon's moved soon, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. We like to move houses here.
'Tis the season.
I'm so
Yeah,
settled.
clearly.
I made pasta.
Oh,
Wow.
From scratch?
Yeah,
Nice.
naturally.
We know that. Oh, you're just asking for the purposes of the
They
podcast. Sorry.
Brilliant.
I knew this was a food podcast, really.
Yeah.
You've walked right into it.
What have I been up to? I don't know. We've just been here, haven't we, really? Because everything's extremely busy at the moment. So, we are in the middle of busy season, pretty much from mid-May to end of September is peak season here at the lab. So, we're just pretty slammed here at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah.
But we do need to, we've recorded pretty much 3 episodes on the trot now. We do need to make an effort to actually get ourselves out and
Have some fun.
Shooting.
making some photos and just shooting some shit.
I'd say.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll try and make an effort to do that before the next one,
Thursday.
so that we've actually got something to talk about in this segment
Yeah.
rather than just moving house.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, let's do that.
Cool.
Should we get into it?
Yeah.
So
I'd say.
John,
Hello.
you're Bath based, aren't you?
I am indeed.
Bath based. Are you're not from Bath though, are you?
Nope.
You're from
West Midlands.
Same part of the world as I am from.
Mm-hmm.
Glorious part of the world.
No man's land.
No man's land. West Midlands, right?
Yeah, Sutton Coldfield.
Sutton Coldfield. There you
Where's
go.
that?
like
It sounds mystical.
It's northeast of Birmingham.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
By a few miles.
Fair.
Lovely
Yeah.
part of the world. You grew up there?
Yeah, I grew up there. Went to school in Aston. So
Up the villa, am I right?
Villa, yeah. best
right
part
next
of the
door.
world.
Yeah, right next door to Aston Villa. Absolutely.
Excellent. This is first
Smile
chance
on your
of,
face.
Yeah, it's first chance of.
Your eyes lit up there.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
You went just down the road from Aston. You went, oh.
I mean, I prefer to the home of Black Sabbath, but if you want to go, to the
I would go with that. Yeah,
that's equally fine. They're all Villa fans, so it's all good.
Yeah,
I'm happy. So growing up there, how long did you stick around West Midlands for?
I think it's how long did you grow up for?
How long is it going to take you to grow up?
Yeah. Still working on it.
Yeah.
I was there till I went to uni at 19. So
Cool.
I grew up there. I went to uni in Leeds
Cool.
the first time. And so I lived there till then, and up in Leeds for a bit, and then came back down, lived in London for a bit, left, ran out of money.
Classic.
Went back to Birmingham, went back to London, ran out of money, went back to Birmingham, and then I got a job at a local newspaper in Sutton.
Cool.
So that was kind of my first photography job, if you like.
Awesome.
It was wildly easy. I just sent loads of travel pictures. Well, it feels like it, but probably wasn't at the time. Sent a load of travel pictures to my local newspaper, and I got given sort of freelance work.
Amazing.
Went from there. So.
Was that pretty? Did you feel like this was like you hit the jackpot at that age? How old were you at this point? Like 19, 20?
No, I was older than that.
Okay.
I was. I'd had loads of. I've worked in hotels, bars, retail, all sorts, and then that was kind of 24, 25. I suppose
Okay.
probably 25.
Okay.
So I came into photography really late. I studied in product design, so my background in photography is sort of, my route in, I suppose, was completely non-photography.
So where did that come from then? How did you get into photography? Does that come from like parents or?
No, one of my sort of oldest best mates, he was really into photography, and we lived together when we were in Leeds, and so we both had SLRs, and we took pictures sort of in second and third year of uni, and then I remember doing like a darkroom course as well, and I learnt a bit on foundation, but I really didn't know very much at all. And then I travelled, as everybody does after university, and
The gap year.
absolutely. I'd come back from that, and it was sort of the only thing that kept me creative travelling was taking pictures, and then I just sent a few of those into to the paper, and that's kind of what ended up building up a relationship with the people at that newspaper, and then they just kind of liked it, so they started giving me a bit of freelance work.
Nice.
And then it advanced.
Can you remember some of your assignments?
It was really high-end stuff.
So
there was
around Sutton Coldfield.
multiple nativity plays,
Yeah.
Czech presentations,
Floats.
occasional floats.
Nice.
Well, maybe just a truck with the sides off. I don't know. Occasionally I'd meet councillors who were trying to have a oak tree chopped down,
Sure.
because the local residents were slipping over on conkers. Really important news, basically, generally speaking.
Nice.
The hard-hitting stuff.
So there was this kind of parochial entertainment to it, but you were kind of doing 6 to 8 jobs a day. So you'd get a sheet of paper, and it would say, right, you've got to be here, 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 and here. And this is kind of predates sat nav. So I'm there with an A to Z, just kind of going, I think I know where I'm going, and then I drive there, and it just kind of cemented in my brain that I can be 5 minutes late for everything. Because I just typically was every day. But it was really good fun. You just go into you'd be at a hospital doing pictures of people. I can't think off the top of my head what it might be, but you'd be at a hospital, and then you'd be at a school, and then you'd be at a sporting event or something like that. And, political people popping by every now and then, and there might be like an MP that you'd be doing a portrait of, or some other celebrity.
Sounds fun.
I think it's an interesting I think, to like the world of paid photography, because I think it's not really an that really exists in that nature anymore. I remember listening to an interview with Alex Soth, and his in was, again, making, like working for a really small newspaper in this really small town that he lived in America. And they'd had like a team of 2 or 3 press photographers, but they're all pretty young, sort of in their like late teens, early 20s, and that was their in photography, and they've all kind of gone on to do sort of documentary photography, really. And it's like, do you think, is that where your interest in making photos of people and kind of being interested in people's lives, do you think that's where that came from?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's this sort of element of doing that job required you to meet people, groups of people, multiple times a day, having to go into that scenario, get on with them, be nice, and have a conversation, whilst at the same time thinking about where you're going to make a picture, setting up a picture that looks decent, and making all of that happen. And it's quite an intense sort of 20-30 minutes of your life. You've suddenly got, sometimes I'll be at a school and it would be, it was a colouring in competition, so it's like, oh, okay. So we've got the kids that have won, but Archie's mum says you can't be in the picture, so you go, okay, cool. So Archie came first, so this picture's the picture of the kid who came second. Right, okay. So Tommy came second, and so we're going to set up a picture of him, and just the logistics of all of that were quite amusing. I think you just kind of got on with it, and then other times you'd be turning up to a portrait that was a bigger news story, and you'd have 4 or 5 other press guys there. And I always remember that feeling a little bit intimidating at the beginning, because you've got these press guys that turn up and kind of knew what they were doing, and I was really just learning as I went. I really didn't know very much at all. And it was just a real sort of learning curve, and one that I didn't realise I was on, I suppose. I was just doing it, sort of bumbling by. And later on, you sort of I don't worry about arranging people or meeting new people, or I just kind of go in and just think it'll be fine. Because 9 times out of 10 it's fine. So I just I was doing it so much that, but there was this element of it plateauing. I'd worked there freelance, so I was doing a lot of freelance stuff, and it was a weird scenario, because one of the staff guys at the newspaper network was poorly. He was dying of cancer, and the sicker he became, the more work I was getting. So it felt really odd. And then subsequently he passed away, and then about a week later they offered me his job. And then
feel rough.
And so I'm kind of off, suddenly offered this full-time job as a staff photographer at a newspaper network. I was given his car, his camera bags, his mobile phone with literally unread text messages on it, unopened mail in his camera bag, and his Robbie Williams CD in the car. Brilliant. It was just a bit mental, and I just sort of said, the epitome of filling someone's shoes. It was really peculiar. And as soon as I had that full-time job and security and company car on under weird circumstances, I didn't want it anymore. And I'd been looking into studying, and so I'd applied to do a master's in London, and I'd looked into either doing commercial photography or doing something more sort of documentary led. And I think from the interviews I had, it was apparent that my work suited more of a documentary vibe, and so that's why I'd applied to do the MA in photojournalism and documentary at LCC. Cool. So I kind of knew that was on the horizon, and then so I had this job, this weird. It's just such an odd time. And I kind of got a little bit, because it plateaued. I kind of thought, it was a salary, not a good one. It was pretty poor, but it was a salary with a company car, which, I mean, when you say to people in photography, you have like a regular salary, it's pretty non-existent in many ways. But I did get a bit bored, so I just started having this competition to see how many times I could get I had like a sun hat, and I'd put it on people in pictures, and I'd just try and see how many times I could get people wearing hat in an edition.
Amazing.
And I thought it would wind the editors up and it would be funny. And then when I was leaving, they were like, "Did you guys notice the hat?" And they were like, "Yeah."
What?
That was fine.
I thought it was really funny. Well, it's kind of it kept me entertained, but no one really seemed to care. And I thought, okay, right, I think it's time to go.
That's brilliant. And so you went to LCC to do your MA.
Yeah.
Which was what was that? Was that a year?
Yeah, a year long. So 2007 that was.
Cool.
So full intense year of that, basically.
How was that? Like, given that you didn't come from sort of like photography and education background, then all of a sudden stepping into photography through education, how was that?
It was very short and sharp, you're straight in there, and I think I felt certainly out of my depth in certain departments, just in terms of photography history and that sort of knowledge base, but then you'd have other areas where you felt really competent. And what was lovely about the course was that there would be people that would be the flip of that, so that they'd have really good photography knowledge, but they might not know something technically. So there was a really good exchange of information on that degree. It was just, I really, really enjoyed it.
That's good.
Yeah, I think being that bit older as well, sort of having had time away from university, and I say this to some of the students at Bath Spa when I do a bit of lecturing there, is I think having a gap between BA, if you want to do MA, I think have a bit of real world experience as well before re-entering that, because just for me, I think it's important to have that, but it doesn't always work. Everyone's on their own little journey of stuff, so that's that. But I think going in a little bit older, I was sort of 25, 26, I think. Okay. So really not a lot of difference, but I thought that was better. It was a really good mix anyway.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
I guess that mix is going to be helpful for everyone, I suppose. Everyone on the course, because we've chatted, in the first couple of episodes, we were chatting about our kind of like origin stories of sort of how we got into photography and stuff. And out of the three of us, Rosie's the only one that's gone through that academic path in photography.
So where did you study, Rosie?
Falmouth.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but I like look back. Me and my friends were like reflect on it a couple of years ago, and I was like, I would have done so much better in regards if I went like later. Like I wasn't in a mad rush to go, but I was like, I'm not too sure what else I'm going to do, so I'm going to experiment and explore this. And then now I'm just like, there's so many more things that I'd like pursue and pay attention to and study harder.
Education wasted on the youth, so they say.
Big time.
I think that now with most things though, like the older I get and the more things I do at the age I am now, I wish there are things that I did when I was younger that I wish I could do now, because I'd appreciate them so much more. But nothing you can do about it, is it? I guess you just it is what it is, and you kind of, well, unless you go back to uni, I suppose, and like
don't do that.
Well, Rosie, was this BA or MA that you were studying?
BA. Yeah.
So and you felt that you would have done that later.
Yeah. Potentially, yeah. I think it would. Yeah, I would have. Because I was just like so shy and awkward. So I feel like if I'd just like gone out and worked for a little bit, because I gained so much like confidence like talking to people. Like I worked in hospitality for a fair few years, so like I think even if I'd done that first and then gone to do it, I think I would have like approached and been more confident through scenarios and maybe attacked projects differently. And
I think as a slight side note, without diving into politics, maybe I will.
Dive in.
This concept that Rishi Sunak's put forward for a mandatory national service.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it should be mandatory hospitality.
Yeah.
Because
we said that.
It's ever so funny. You really know who's worked in hospitality when you go to a restaurant.
Yeah.
And who hasn't. It's quite funny, isn't it? I think that like a year or two of
teaches you a lot.
Yeah, it really does, and I think it's really good for you because you understand people in general better. And then maybe you're right, you do that and then study later on. But I think it's different for everybody. Again, some people you can be 19, 20 and be so grown up, and you can be like me who just felt a bit wet behind the ears at that age going to university. You know, for me, I did product design, furniture product design for 3 years, and it was a creative course, but I've not used it. It was a little bit cheaper back in 2000. The consequences are less grave. But I find it mental when you see some students, and you chat to some students, and you're sort of thinking that they're not really turning up, paying attention. This is a limited few people, but I've noticed it. And then you sort of think, you're coming out with so much debt.
So much. It's
like it's imaginary to people, but it's like, man, you're going to have 50 grand's worth of debt to pay off at some point.
Yeah, it's insane, isn't it?
But it's mad that, like, it's still, regardless of the cost, there is still this, and again, like, not to dive into politically, but because I don't want to get started on this country's education system, but there's still this pressure on young people to go to university. That is, really like your best option, regardless of what it is that you do and what it is that you're most interested in. There doesn't seem to be an awful lot of encouragement for
apprenticeship
kids.
schemes.
Yeah, apprenticeship schemes, or even to just go. Yeah, do you know what? Leave school after your GCSEs and. If you want to go and work somewhere for a year or two and gain that kind of like life experience, and like Rosie said, the confidence of working in hospitality or kind of anywhere where you're having to deal with people, and then by that point you might be a little bit more sure about your interests and what it is that you want to pursue, rather than this kind of almost like not being forced, but I think feeling forced within the sort of institution of education that you must go from GCSEs to A-level or college, and you must go from there to university, and that there's not really this like, it actually doesn't matter, like you said, you went to uni a bit later and you've done your MA like later than others, and that's like probably been to your benefit, right?
The funny thing with the MA, I was actually one of the youngest people on it.
Okay.
So let's say 26. There's a couple of us that were that age, and then it spanned up to probably mid-40s at the time, maybe 50s.
Yeah.
So it's a really good cross-section of people, actually.
That's good.
At that level. I think just having that bit of life experience makes all the difference. But again, it can be what course you're on. I think if you're on a very social course, photography actually encourages you to be out meeting people, taking pictures of people that you don't know. Not always. And also presenting your work in front of people. Some courses could be more academic, whereby it's very much about sort of submitting papers and not having that direct sort of one-to-one or group conversations or anything like that. So I don't know, you can see people over the course of a 3-year BA really flourishing and becoming more confident as a person. So I think it's really individual, but if I was giving people advice, I'd want a bit more time.
I think they just need to lead with that, because I know it's very different when I went to uni for a very short time, but I went because it was like now or never. You got into uni, you need to go, and I dropped out because I hated it, because I should never have gone. I'm glad I did. Kind of got me to where I needed to be now, just in a weird roundabout way. But it's such a strange concept that it's just sort of like you said about like apprenticeships and stuff. Like they should be pushing that more, and I think maybe they do now, but they didn't. And I think it was just such a big thing on like, if you've gotten to uni, you should go, because if you don't go now, you'll never go. And it's like, well, actually, I don't get me wrong, I don't know how well I'd do now, but maybe if I hadn't gone then, maybe there'd come a point in my life where I go, do you know what? I know I'm a bit old, but I'll do a BA now. Like, if that's what I wanted to do.
I think that there is an element with university that it's a chance for you to leave home in a fairly safe environment, live around people, shared housing. You know, it's like, imagine being 19 and you just rented a flat somewhere, you know, in the middle of nowhere and thought you'd see how it goes. It'd be a very different experience to going to a university where you're institutionalized still. You're still part of a system.
It's a very soft entry into life, and ideally you are doing something that you love. Like, I did enjoy it, but I do just think I potentially would do better.
Are you with an agency? You have representation?
Commercially, no.
Commercially, no. Okay.
I was with an agency until about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
I sort of had a bit of a shift, so I'd moved gallery, and I moved and I left an agency that I was part of.
Yeah.
And the shift for me was from the gallery that I was previously with, and then I was approached by the Photographers Gallery to join them, and so my attentions over the last sort of 12 months or so has been, 18 months has been sort of, you know, working with them and going into that direction. And commercially, I've been just sort of pitching out for work myself. You know, I've had a multitude of conversations. Like, some people say that they're sort of happier to work outside of an agency, you know, work direct with a photographer. And, you know, but it depends what the job is. I think it really does.
So how much of day to day, John, like your we know, obviously we've got one of your pub town photos up there on a postcard from you, which that was the first bit of your work that I'd come across, which I thought was awesome. But how much of your work would you say, like, in terms of split between like kind of longer form documentary work and commercial work, what's that split like for you, and how do you manage it?
You know what, I still don't know. I'd love to say that I have a real good formula for it, but I just, you know, it fluctuates. Like, every year feels different for me, and it, you know, sometimes I feel in control of one aspect, and then another one shifts, and then, you know, it's just I find it a bit bonkers. And sometimes I find that really stressful, you know, and I try to think, well, how can I kind of contain all of this? Because to fully operate as an artist, you know, creating your work, where your income comes from is unreliable at best. You know, if you look at the print sale world, how you can control how and why you sell prints, you know, that's unreliable. Commercial work, it can be the same, you know, and I think I often wish I could just solely focus on one, because it would calm my brain down, but I always feel like, you know, I should be doing other things, you know. And then there's the editorial market as well, you know, and so for me, I mean, I don't do very much editorial nowadays, you know, as and when things come up. You know, for me, it's more about, I know there's a story I want to try and shoot, and then I'll reach out to people and see if they want me to shoot it. You know, it kind of works that way more. But, you know, it's sort of, the regularity of it's bizarre. You know, I know I do a little bit of lecturing as well, just to sort of, you know, balance it out. So it's kind of having a multitude of things happening all at once. Do you think you're, like, I know obviously you're like, sometimes I kind of wish I could go and just concentrate on one of them for your brain's sake, but I can't remember who we were talking, maybe it was just us three talking to each other, but like, I feel like sometimes as a creative, your brain also almost kind of needs all of these different things to kind of I don't know, satisfy kind of every need that you have. Because, you know, obviously, like, you've got your sort of like the personal work and the documentary work that you kind of pursue personally, which satisfies one urge almost, but you still need to pay the bills. You still need commercial work and stuff like that. So there's got to be, your brain must
I mean, well, yeah, you will need
money aside. I think there's benefits to both. You know,
Yeah.
I think in terms of the documentary stuff, it offers you the ability to travel, meet people, and just put yourself in all sorts of environments and be nosy and just, you know, you're in control of it. You know, it's great.
Yeah.
You're the director. I think when you get involved in me personally, when I've been involved in commercial work, I really enjoy being part of a team as well. So, you know, suddenly you're working with an art director, a producer, you know, and you have sort of a lighting rig, maybe sort of like video team, stills team, you know, all of that come together. Yeah. I love being part of that machine as well. And so, yeah, I think you're right. I think, you know, you have a bit of that and you come away and you're like, I don't know if I could do this all the time. Because I want to go do this. And then, yeah, like if you did all the other thing on all the time, you might feel a bit lonely. And then, you know, then the teaching side of it, I think there are elements in that remind you where you've got to. You know, sometimes I quite often feel like you're just at the beginning again.
Yeah.
You know, this, you know, I know you guys did a podcast about imposter syndrome and stuff, you know. You can't help letting that creep in on you sometimes, and you just sort of think, what am I doing? Where am I? And when you're teaching, it forces you to sort of think about the stuff that you've done in the past, and you sort of think, okay, I've done a few bits and bobs, you know, and you sort of, it reminds you of that. I don't know, maybe like questions that you might have asked when you were 10 years ago compared to now, you just take it for granted that you know it or something like that.
It's interesting you mentioned the imposter syndrome, because obviously from sort of an outsider perspective, you know, we look at, or at least, you know, I look at the amount of work that you've, you know, the amount of bodies of work that you have, and the amount of work that you've exhibited that people have seen of yours, and you think, how could this guy possibly have any sort of imposter syndrome? Because like, it just looks like you're just creating work that you want to create all of the time. but which probably is bonkers for you to hear someone say. But
yeah, I don't have imposter syndrome. I don't give a shit.
I just wanted to get down to your level.
Trying to make you feel better. I think everybody kind of carries that, you know, because ultimately everything that you do is creative, it's subjective. And so, you know, it would be odd if you didn't get that in, you know, that feeling of, is just crap, and what, you know, it's just really shit, or is it not? And you know, you just that comes in waves because it's emotional. You're you know, you're sort of everything about work that you're creating. It's very personal and it's very sort of emotional to you. So you're going to be sensitive to it. So you've got to have those feelings. And then I don't know, but I think the benefit of getting older is that you just chill out a bit more, you know, and so you're just a bit like, well, if they don't like it, I don't really care. You know, because it'd be boring if everybody liked what you did. It'd be sad if nobody likes what you did. But, you know, you kind of have to have that level of, everybody can't possibly like what you do, you know. So, you just sort of have this certain level of, you know,
contentment.
I don't know about contentment, but like you're just sort of a bit more accepting of it all, and you're just a bit kind of more relaxed, you know. Ultimately, you know, sometimes I have to remind myself why I got into photography, and I just wanted to do it because I wanted to basically get paid to travel and be able to meet people, see the world, you know, and just, as I said, really fucking good excuse to be nosy. I love that. And then when I start going down a path of am I making the right portfolio for this kind of commercial work and doing this and doing that, I have to remind myself to be like, this isn't actually why you got into this. And then you sort of have to recalibrate again and be like, oh, okay, I get it, because other people come into photography for completely different reasons. It's the vessel, but it's not you as a person. And you have to remind yourself of that, because, you know, there are projects that you look at and think, wow, that's amazing work, I'd love to be doing something around that sort of thing. But it's like, hold on, I'm just some, you know, when you think about who you are as a person, it's like, there's no way I could be making that work as a person. I have to make something that's a reflection of me, because an audience is, you know, people aren't, people are very intelligent when they look at work, and you look at a project and think, in principle, I really like what this is about, but why don't I engage with it? What's missing?
Yeah.
And sometimes you realise that it feels sort of disingenuous, and you just sort of think, and you almost know that as well as a photographer. When you're doing something that you're really, really into, and you sort of love it and you believe in it. And I think an audience can really spot when it's forced.
Yeah.
I think people really see that, and I think when you sort of look at commercial work as well, you sort of think, I don't know, I think appetites change quite quickly in the commercial world, but I think there's definitely been a shift towards more kind of real, genuine, less polished kind of advertising stuff. And I think in the UK more so than perhaps in the US. When you look at work in the US, it's very much more of a slicker operation, I think. I don't know. So
talking about sort of your work, I said it earlier, Pubtown was the first bit of work that I saw of yours. For anyone who's not seen it, who's not aware of it, you talk us a bit about how that project came about.
Well, in brief, that work is a series of large group photographs of pubs in Bath.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. That's essentially what it is.
And that was just personal work for you. That's something that an idea that you came up with that you wanted to pursue.
Yeah, it's just a bit of it's kind of a fun story. It's a bit of a reaction to the two previous bodies of work that I've done. So since I did my masters, I spent 6-7 years traveling around the South Atlantic, going to remote British overseas territories, sitting on boats for a week to get to places, spending a month there trying to meet people, make work. So loads of travel, really incredible experiences, and I sort of dotted around all of these obscure places, and I very much enjoyed it. Following that, I then went to the South Pacific a number of times, making work out there on a sort of really small island in Vanuatu, and I was travelling out there to sort of try and make a documentary piece with a writer out there, and I suddenly realised that I felt in the back of my head that I could only be creative when I'd either like travelled 36 hours on a plane or sat on a boat. I'm like, you're such a dickhead. Why don't you make any work like close to home? It just felt really stupid, and I just felt like there wasn't anywhere that I was proud of that I was making locally. And the last trip I'd done to Vanuatu, I'd gone out to sort of try and make as much work as I could. This was for the second book I did.
Yeah. So this with was it Chris, the writer?
Christopher Lord. Yeah. So we'd been sort of travelling and telling this story for the book, The Men Who Would Be King. But on the last trip, I wanted to go out, and Chris was unable to travel with me, and I kind of thought I'd quite like, there was an element of it, I just wanted to go alone and just roam and, not particularly try to think literally about telling stories. I just wanted to make images in the area and see what I could do. But I also wanted someone to come with me, kind of as an assistant, really sort of as a comrade, And so one of my close mates, a guy called Roman France, he's a Czech photographer. We'd met in Houston a number of years ago at the Photo Fest, and we'd just been really good mates ever since. And I had the ability at the time to say, I can't really pay you as an assistant, I just don't have the money, but if you fancy a really fucking fun holiday, like, I'll pay for your flights, pay for your accommodation and everything. So I just said that's what I can afford, and he was like, yep, great, I'm in. So we flew out together, and we had a month in Vanuatu taking pictures and just hanging out.
Amazing.
And it was so lovely. It was amazing. Just because, like, if you travel with your partner or a writer or something, their remit isn't, let's get up at 5 a.m. and go take pictures, or should we hang out for the light? Should we see what happens? Or should we just wander up there? Or none of that is logical in other worlds other than photographers who just like accept the kind of we just need to see what happens or whatever. So anyway, this guy Roman came and we just had a wonderful time, and one of the things that we both shared was we really enjoy sort of the group picture thing, and we love making group pictures, and we'd gone in and he wanted to do this enormous group picture in a church, and we did, so we set up this big picture one day in a church in Vanuatu, and that happened a couple of times when we were out there, and so we were just ruminating about it when we got back, and he'd come to stay with me in Bath, and we'd done a photography portrait workshop in Bath as well, and we just thought it'd be really funny to try and drag everybody out of my local pub on a Friday night and take a picture of them. Yeah. So we were sort of saying, how should we do it? And so I live in a village called Larkhall, and there's a little pub called the Larkhall Inn, and it's quite an old school place. You know, at the time it was sort of, you know, no card payments, cash only. Yeah. There was like a taxidermy fox with a fez and a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. You know, that kind of vibe, you know. And the sort of pub where you walk in and literally people turn to look at you. And so I just sort of thought, right, let's get all of these people outside for a picture and just see what happens. And so we went in and did it, and everyone sort of looks at you like, why? And it's like, because it might be fun. And so it worked, and we got them all outside, and I'd recce'd it, and there's a pharmacy, a dentist opposite that had good elevation and a window to shoot out of. But of course, by the time we did the picture, they'd closed shop and gone home. Yeah. So we're suddenly there thinking, oh shit, how are we going to get any kind of elevation last minute? And I saw this van at the side of the road with two builders sat in it, and it had a ladder up the side. And I was like, oh, hello. So I went up to them and I was like, guys, are you busy? And there were these two Geordie lads, and they'd been working on a building site, and they were deciding whether to stay in Bath the night or drive back to Newcastle. And so I just said, well, tell you what, if I buy you a couple of beers, can we stand on your van? And so they were like, all right, fuck it. So they started looking for a hotel. And we crawled up on top of the van, set up this picture. And so they stood there drinking Snakebite in the corner whilst we set up this big group picture. Brilliant. And it was just hilarious. And we had so much fun. And the vibe was great. And then we did a print for them, and it's now hanging in the pub, and that just kind of kick-started it, you know, because we just sort of loved doing it, and that's when I wanted to do the Bell picture, which is the one that you guys have here. And Roman couldn't come over for it, so I just thought, I'll just crack on with it myself, and that was it. So I just went in and explained what I wanted to do, and if people would like to help me set up a band on the roof, and you know, just so it's all about the recce. It's so fun, you know. It's like, what can we do? And it makes everyone kids, and it was lovely. It was, you know, everyone's like, there's a concertina, there's a drum kit, and so let's put it on the roof, and it just kind of, you know, it was just fun. So
it's like everyone egging each other on as to like all like the things that you could do, that you could bring into it. Yeah,
it sort of stops it kind of takes the ego out of taking a picture. And it's just like, where's the camera going to go? Great, sorted. Who's doing what? Who's going to stand where? And you know, and when I look back on that picture, you know, everyone's pretty pissed. And it was getting dark, and I was suddenly thinking, hold on, I'm shooting on, you know, 125 film, you know, an F kind of 32. I'm thinking, it's about 5 seconds, this exposure.
This is all 5x4. Yeah.
And I've learned a lot. I wanted to get some elevation, and Bath's kind of cool for this because obviously, you know, there's
lots of hills,
4 or 5 story buildings, and I was sort of looking around before it, and this lad just came out of his a door, and I said, I don't suppose that's your bedroom, is it, mate? And he was like, yeah, it is. And I said, if I buy you a few pints, can I stand in your bedroom? And he was like, yeah, cool. So the next thing I know, I'm in this room that just sort of smells of links and shame, and I'm moving his furniture around, setting up this 5.4 camera, which as well, like, I'm not that well versed with at the time. Right. And so I've gone from not using 5.4 to using 5.4 and setting it up for a photograph of 40 people, which in hindsight feels really silly. Because you know, it's quite nerve-wracking when you're setting it up and doing it. And anyway, we just set it up and did it. But by this point, the first exposure was 5 seconds. The last one was 10. Because the light was dipping and dipping and dipping. And I got to, you know, everyone's pissed standing outside of a pub. And I'm thinking, I managed to get them to stand still for 10 seconds. Apart from 2 people who swapped places halfway. But it just added to the fun. So it was just great. You know, just the whole process. I just get so much satisfaction out of it. Just because it's a laugh. You know, and it just felt like, you know, there's that element of everyone getting involved and mucking in. It's a bit of a celebration of the place, and so I've sort of it had a bit of a snowball effect. I've done more and more, and so I've done about 8 pubs in Bath now, 8 or 9, and then I started having conversations with a few newspapers about doing it all around the country. And then that led me on to thinking, well, I'll try to get Arts Council funding to do it around the country. So I've applied twice to Arts Council and I've been rejected, saying they felt that it wasn't the right ethos or something. And I felt like I couldn't be more community oriented.
I was going to say the ethos is like,
maybe it's on the inclusivity
fantastic,
or something. I'm not really sure why it didn't, but I'm also aware that I think they're a bit strapped for cash and only so many people can get it. So I spent a lot of time last year doing Arts Council funding to no fruition. It sort of had a bit of a hiatus, but I'm going to pick it up again.
Brilliant.
But it's just incredibly enjoyable. So I did one last summer for the same pub. It was the 10 year of them being a cooperatively owned pub. So it was 10-year anniversary. Amazing. So we set up a big picture. And the first picture, I think it's got around 40 people in it. The second one had 110.
Jesus Christ.
And it was so funny because I was sort of thinking the second time round, okay, I'm going to shoot from the street, but I was quite high up. And then we suddenly had 110 people turn up. And we had people, there was a band there playing music and people just spilled onto the streets. But for some reason, just when I wanted to do the picture, 2 bloody big coaches decided to come past.
No.
Couldn't get past. And so I pretty much blocked off Bath for about 10 minutes of traffic. And I've got 100 people waiting to take the picture. So imagine how twitchy you get when you set up a picture. You're waiting for it, and I'm just like, we're just gonna have to wait, everybody. So that was logistically interesting. But one of my mates is a PCSO, and he came down and just stopped the road.
Brilliant.
So just literally just 2 guys stopped the street, let me take the picture, and then
some practice with an authoritarian voice, just like stop.
It was great. So it's just a hoot, you know. I love it, and so I really want to do a lot more of that, and I'm hoping to work more with my Czech friend as well, because we just have a really good time together. And so, you know, this is what I was saying, you know, the idea of being able to just focus on that, you know, there's such joy in it, and if you can find ways of funding it, even better. But that seems really hard in this country at the moment.
Has there been much, like with the personal work that you do, like Pub Towns project, and sort of other personal work that you've done, do you find that you get commercial work off the back of that? People almost wanting to kind of recreate in some aspects some of the personal work that you've done for them commercially, if that makes sense?
Yes, to a degree. I think so the dream is to get paid, well, ideally, like getting paid commercially what you do for your personal work. You know, and I don't think I'm particularly one of those people that's achieved that yet, and it's something, you know, it's a direction I'd like to go in. But yeah, it does happen, you know, and actually I'm sort of picking up more, you know, I've started doing a few commercially big group shots, which is fun. And yeah, there are opportunities. It's more, my personal work leads more into, what do you call it? Cultural commissions.
Right.
I suppose. So, for example, I mean, how we met is through the commission through the Martin Parr Foundation for the sustainable fishing project that I'm doing.
Yep.
So that's through Martin Parr Foundation and through the Gaia Foundation.
Cool.
So I'm being, essentially commissioned to do what make work the way that I like to make work.
Yeah.
And I have a year to do it. So that.
Was that this project specifically that you're shooting now? Is that something that an idea that you had that you wanted to pursue that you then went to Martin Parr Foundation or other people with this idea of saying can we do this?
No, this was the other way. So the basically the project is through the Gaia Foundation and We Feed the UK,
right? And
so it's headed up by the Gaia Foundation and Ali Nelson, who's organising it.
Okay.
She's one of the people who's putting it all together. And so I've been working quite closely with her.
Cool.
And then the guys at Martin Parr Foundation approached me and said, that they want to commission you to do a sort of year-long, delve into the sustainable fishing world.
Yeah.
Would you be interested? So I mean, something like that is, it's a real pleasure to be able to be part of that. And so I was obviously keen to do it.
Yeah.
So it came in that way. And so what they've done is they've commissioned, I think it's about 10 of us in total around the country, photographing different aspects of either regenerative farming or sustainable fishing or what have you. So and so my commission's a year-long one.
Yeah.
And then we'll show at the foundation in April 2025.
Amazing.
So yeah, I'm just sort of pushing on with that at the moment. But it's great. I love it. I mean, it's been great having the sort of the ability to work with you guys and bring film in and have a sort of a bit of sponsorship in that respect is really it's been incredible. The expense of travelling to Cornwall a lot is quite hard and something I hadn't quite anticipated. Because I'm meeting fishermen. I'm trying to go out with fishermen, and a couple of times I've driven to Cornwall to meet people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, probably not today." Okay. So I've travelled down a few times for nothing. Well, it's never nothing. It's always something. But it's the logistics are quite complicated and stuff. So it's become an interesting one.
Okay.
But I love it. It's good fun.
Are you shooting that solely on film or
purely on film?
Oh, you are. Okay.
Using my Hasselblad for that. Yeah.
Cool.
So shooting all 6.6.
Which obviously comes with its own challenges anyway, but also on a boat.
It does on a boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How have you found that?
Yeah. I feel ridiculous. I feel like such an idiot. Like I'm sort of a mile offshore, rocking around, trying to reload a roll of film.
Yeah.
And there's like mackerel fish flakes all over my boots, all over. Like I looked down at my lens once and I just had this lump of mackerel blood. It was just like whoop, flick that off. So that's been interesting.
Do you think the choice to shoot it on film in that environment, you're on a boat in the middle of the sea covered in fish, is also do you think it's been quite freeing as well? In what I mean by that is you're not shooting it digitally, so you're stepping on that boat probably stupid o'clock in the morning, right? And you've probably got an idea of what you're wanting to get from this. You're shooting digitally. If you're shooting digitally, you're looking as you go and you're checking and you're almost kind of box ticking, like, yeah, okay, I've got that shot, or I haven't got that shot yet, so I need to try and get that. And it's it potentially more of a stressful experience because you're constantly trying to either get the shot or better it. Whereas you're shooting on film, you've no idea. Really. There's no review, so you just.
I think obviously logistically it's rather awkward. A lot of it because of early mornings and nights.
Yeah.
I'm using a Metz flash as well, so I've got this sort of hammer arm camera, which sometimes works. Sometimes I have to hit it. Yeah. Literally like smacking. There's this one moment where I'm on the deck of this boat and it's really quite rocky.
Yeah.
I'm slipping left, slipping right. There's guys pulling in like tons of sardines. Was it sardines? Whatever it was. And then and the shot I wanted, and and you press the button and it's like, oh, number 12. nothing there.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
So yeah, you're trying to reload the film quickly, but with the Mets Flash, you have to take it off sometimes to get the access and all that crap. So anyway, so there are times when I just think you are really dumb because you can get around this, but at the same time, there is also I did a test shoot digitally on one of the boats, and then I thought, I'll shoot film and see which one makes me feel happier.
Yeah,
and frankly, I just felt instantaneously happier shooting with my Hasselblad.
Yeah.
And I think it was exactly that. Like the digital shoot felt like an editorial shoot. It felt like I was trying to tell everything in a few pics, and trying to make sure I've covered everything and checking it and thinking, have I done this? Have I done that? And actually, what I realised is that when you're shooting film and you don't know what you're doing or what you've taken, your relationship with the person that is taking you out is different.
Yeah.
Because you're not saying, can you do that again? Or you're just a bit more kind of, sorry, I'm a bit slow and a bit clunky, but move on. And I don't know, it just feels like a different relationship.
It's what I get is what I get.
Yeah.
Rather than, you could take a shot and be like, I just misfocused on the bit that I wish I'd have nailed focus on. So like you said, can you just do that again for me? And then I'll try and get it this time.
It's just a few shots that I've never gotten in the other way. Like, I don't know, there's just like silly things that have just come out. Some things don't work, and that's fine, and then some things just really work, and you're just like lovely surprises. And I've really enjoyed working with Flash for this one as well. It's been quite fun bringing that to life. There's just a different headspace entirely. And also, you spend 6 hours on a boat and you get off. Do you go home and download and sit and start going through all your pictures, or do you put your camera in your bag, go and have a pint, and then get some rest? And your headspace is different. It's a completely different thing. Shooting film for the pubs puts the shits at me, because I've made all these people stand somewhere, and then I'm just nervous until I get the picture back. It's like, please work.
How many when you're doing, just get back to that pub stuff, the logistics of that, how many sheets are you normally taking of the same shot? Like 2 or 3,
maybe 4.
Okay. Purely just from in the hope that one works.
And I'll probably dev them separately. Just because I don't feel hugely experienced with 5.4, so I use it because of the size of the neg. But actually, you know what? Like, I've been using the Fujis, the Fuji 100s. The files on those are actually better in many ways to using the 5.4. They're incredible.
They're stunning.
It's wild, the size of the files, but I don't know. So I'm sort of weighing up the benefits of that, and obviously you have the mechanical movements within a 5.4 camera that you don't have with the digital stuff, unless you have a tilt shift. But there is also an element of theatre with the sort of 5.4, and so you can call bullshit on that, and fine, do whatever. But I quite enjoy it, and everybody involved enjoys it. So who cares?
I think that's 100% the case. We've talked about this before with with large format. But with film in general, I think when you've got this camera that's potentially, I don't know, whether it's 20 years old, 50 years old, 100 years old, it's there is a theatre to it. It's a conversation piece. It's almost an icebreaker, particularly with a subject that you might not have met before. And I guess like if you're doing wet plate stuff with people as well, that the whole process behind that is fascinating to people that aren't in this world, that aren't in this industry. We know that film has had this big resurgence, and we know the benefits to why you might want to shoot something on 5.4. But to someone not in this world, they're like, what is this thing that you've got? What is this contraption? This looks like a 150-year-old camera where you get under your your cloth and your like.
I reckon with 5.4 you can be very like with the whole dark cloak and stuff, you can be so performative with it. And
I think it allows it's twofold here, because on one hand when people see that you're doing it, they go, oh gosh, they're taking it seriously. Because if you set up a big picture and then you just got your camera like, well done.
Yeah.
It would be different to people. You're sort of saying, guys, I really need you to stand still. I really need you to, be like a statue for me for this brief period. And, the organisation makes people kind of respect it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you do that and you take a couple of pictures, and a couple of the pub ones, people are a bit pissed as well. So you take a couple and they're like, great, see you later. And I was like, no, we've got to do 2 more. We've got to do more. And they're like, and literally a couple of people are like, yeah, fuck this, I need a drink. And then they go. And so you're like, so there's pros and cons. Definitely pros and cons. And, I sometimes do like a digi backup. Which I kind of wish I didn't want to do, but actually there are so many things you can get wrong. And so the organization of it, I just feel calmer knowing.
But
I don't know, it's a funny thing.
It's interesting. I think that what you're saying about people think that you're taking it more seriously when you've kind of got like a bigger, more serious looking setup. We were talking a little while ago, because we've all got you two have got Fuji, like the Fuji mirrorless, the APS-C sort of sensor, Fuji, like the X Pro and the XT. And I think you were talking about like turning up on a shoot, and because obviously mirrorless cameras now, they're so small, they're so compact, very capable, but almost look like a kind of just like a holiday snaps camera. But
just put a cloak over your head.
Take a cloak everywhere you go.
Put it in a shoebox and put a cloak over your head and everyone's carry it around. Wow.
My thing is I just rock it with the biggest flash. So
Nice.
it equals out.
Don't
worry about it.
I mean, there's a truth to it. Like, some people have said on commercial gigs, turn up with loads of kit so it looks like you know what you're doing, then don't use it.
I've 100% done that.
I know loads
without
of people
shadow of a
have done
doubt.
that.
Like, I know I only need this and this to do the shoot, but if I turn up with that, the client is just going to think I don't know what I'm doing, which is mad, because what the fuck does that matter? Because you're still going to get the same and you're still going to deliver the same afterwards. But it's performative in some way, isn't it?
Turned up and done a recce the day before, or you practice your light, you know what you're doing, and it doesn't really matter, does it?
It doesn't. But there's still always this niggling thing of like,
it's always perception, isn't it?
I don't want them to think I don't know what I'm doing, even though I do.
Well, it's funny. I'd rented some aperture lights recently, and I was chatting to the guys about it that rented it to me, and we were just talking about kit, and they were saying they were asked to give a quote about for some kit rental, and they sent it to the client, and it was too cheap. They had to be shown to be, so they were like, oh right, okay. So they said, oh well, we've got another company we can get a quote from, and so they just they put the same kit on the on the sheet, doubled the price, and we're like, yeah, that's more like it.
It's mad.
And it was almost like they needed to be seen to be spending a budget or something. So
what, isn't it?
Sometimes
that's compared to sort of my world of just going up and doing pictures. I don't know. It's funny. It's funny how it works.
It's a mad world, photography, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah. Which is why it's really hard to advise people on how to do it. Because it depends on your personality, it depends on your background, it depends on in some cases your demographic, in some cases sort of, I don't know, who you're going to be photographing. There's so many variables, aren't there?
One question that we didn't mean it to be something that we've asked everyone, but I think it's quite an interesting.
Is this about the Monster Munch?
Yes, this is about your Monster Munch
preferred flavour.
Yeah,
better be pickled onion.
Everyone's favourite Monster Munch is pickled onion, no?
Flaming hot. Sorry.
Really?
Well, you know what?
Pickled onion.
I'll go with either.
To be honest, give any answer, but if you said roast beef.
Yeah, that's true.
Be off.
Yeah, if your favourite, there's I think something psychopathic if your favourite Monster Munch flavour is roast beef.
I know people that would really have it out with you for that.
Really?
Well, they're not coming on the podcast. If you can write a list of names now so we can avoid that.
for the record, listeners, my opening conversation today was about Jack's dinner, and he couldn't remember what he had for dinner, and then I tried to remember what I had for dinner, and it turned out to be 2 packets of Monster Munch.
Yeah, in a pub. Yeah,
sounds like a good dinner
with some students.
Average dinner, better company.
Nice.
Yeah.
Happy days.
The question I was initially...
Sorry,
No, that's all good. I'm all for Monster Munch related diversions. We sort of spoken about it in earlier podcasts before we've invited guests on, and then it just so happens we've had the conversation with the last previous 2 guests. In terms of like...
I'm scared.
Rosie's eyebrows went up then. I don't know what's coming.
No, it's not a bad one at all. It's I think an interesting start to people's photography journeys to find out whether they are more sort of focused on the technical aspects of getting photography right in terms of like exposure, composition, focus, all those just the fundamentals really, and then kind of figuring out the creative later. And that's definitely, we've sort of said that's probably definitely more me, whereas you're kind of somewhere in the middle,
straddling them both.
Rose is probably more probably the same, kind of somewhere in the middle, but probably more creative first and then kind of learning the technical later.
Yeah, probably.
Would you say with yourself, when you were learning photography and even now, are you more focused on, pardon the pun, getting the technical aspects right first and then kind of worrying about being kind of more creative?
I think I don't know how to answer that, because I wouldn't say I'm like incredibly technical.
Yeah.
I think I'm a firm believer of just simplifying your kit bag and sort of stripping back all the additional things that are just unnecessary.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I went back to my first job, the press job I was talking about.
Yeah.
And I would turn up to these jobs with loads of other press guys, and I just remember having this Nikon DSLR, one of the earlier ones, and I didn't, I think I must have had a flash gun and stuff, and I was just working with all of that, and these guys would turn up with these massive telephoto lenses, and their kind of remit was long lens, shallow depth of field, flash, fill flash, jobs are good, and that was the, and I remember sort of looking at this thinking that made me feel really inferior. I thought, I don't have the right kit, I don't know what I'm doing, and all of that, and it was quite a sort of manly world as well of these sort of dudes with kit who sort of turn up and do their thing, and it's like, all right, love, just bit of leg. it's all a bit horrible, I just I really remember it feeling a bit weird, and I instantaneously want to rebel things like that, and go the opposite way. So I think it's really important that you know how to use stuff. Sure. I think you should know how to light stuff. I think you should know how to, you should know your tech.
Yeah.
And then if you want to use it, great. If you don't, who gives a shit? I think work backwards that way. Because there's, for you as a person and as a photographer, feeling like, I don't know how to do that, so I'll just work with this.
Yeah.
Is a worse feeling than knowing what you're doing, but thinking, I'm choosing to do it like this.
Yeah.
And I think, because then you have the ability to make that selection.
Yeah.
But going back to, in terms of kit, like when I was doing the stuff, the sort of Empire work that I was doing, I literally just had a Hasselblad with one lens, just a 80mm lens, and that was it. And it was just like, well, I think I eventually got a wide, so if I wanted a wide, I could opt for that.
Yeah.
But it was just sort of like, well, if I want more in the picture, I'll just go a bit further back, and that kind of thing. So and that simplification makes you more creative. And I think, you know, it just takes another thing out of your brain to worry about. Yeah. So I like the simplification, but it doesn't, like, if it's a commercial gig, then you don't always have that. Of course. It's like, how do you achieve this? Yeah. So, well, it's a bit tricky, so we'll need to do this, 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 and this. But if you've just got one camera, one lens, and it might be like, well, I actually can't, you know, then you're not fulfilling a brief. But the limitations, the restrictions are almost more freeing in that respect, because you've got no other options. I think anything that just slows you down and allows you to think about what you're doing is great. And, you know, another reason why I like using the Hasselblad is that you're looking down at a screen, and you know, there's a real simplification with that. Yeah. You know, you're sort of, I find looking through a viewfinder a very different experience. Yeah. You know, 5.4s, obviously you're inverted, so it's a bit more complicated. Yeah. But I think I probably sit somewhere in between to answer that in a shorter way.
No, I think that's probably where most people are kind of finding themselves. But like, you know, we were talking to Constantine, you know, and he was saying, but he very much, his first initial thing was, I have to be able to know how to use this camera first. Regardless of what ideas I have, I can't execute those without knowing the fundamental, like, functionality of the camera. And of course, you sort of, you probably kind of do need to understand those elements. But sort of on the flip side, Alice, who was on the previous episode, she's, you know, just got all these ideas, and she would probably say, in fact, I think did say, you know, would class herself as more of an artist that uses photography as one of many tools rather than a photographer. Yeah. So she worries way less about the technical side of things, and has kind of just uses a camera as a tool to kind of convey, you know, thoughts and feelings and emotions and stuff, and has only really kind of over time felt, you know, taught herself and learnt kind of how a camera works and stuff like that, in order to, I suppose, kind of make it easier to get what she wants to get. But I just find it really interesting, like, people's different kind of entrances into I think photography. I
think when it's your personal work, that's, you know, that's great. Just really just sort of trust yourself and just use the vessel that makes you feel happiest, because you know, it's like putting your best pair of shoes on to go out. You know, it's just, you know what makes you feel good. I think when, you know, you sort of live in a world where you make your own personal work, but also you want to make a living out of it, and you know, when you're working in an environment in the sort of editorial or commercial environment, you need to be able to control the situation. A client wants to know that you're a safe pair of hands. They want to, you know, they need to be able to trust that you're going to achieve something. And so it can't be like, oh, today didn't really work out, because it's like, well, that's fine, but you know, they're not going to be able to rely on that, so you need to be able to execute something. There's two sides to it, really, isn't there? But if you are the person, if you're in that situation where your personal work is what people want in a commercial capacity, and they just say, just do your thing, then maybe you can just be trusted to do what the hell you want and use whatever camera you want. And, you know, and then that's just because that's a reflection of you as the artist. So it's different, isn't it? You know, I think if it's sort of, if you're working to a particular tick list from a brief of what you need to achieve in a day, it's not a trust thing, is it? It's a box ticking. So I don't know, like, in a perfect world, I could just have one camera, one lens, bag of film, maybe a flash, off your trot.
Well, all right. Thank you very much, John.
Thanks, Jon Tonks,
joining us on this podcast. It's been a lot of fun.
I hope I've been interesting and informative.
No,
you absolutely have.
Yeah, you have.
It's been lovely to learn about you more.
It's been good.
Before we wrap it up, John, where can our listeners find your work?
on the floor of print rooms.
Go to your nearest print room.
Where can you find my work? On my website, which is the easiest place, which is just jontonks.com.
Cool.
There's no H in John for the record. Photographers Gallery website, so rep both Photographers Gallery print sales, or Instagram, so Jon_Tonks.
Sweet.
Amazing.
I reckon we'll put that in the description as well. So
yeah, we'll put all like links to everything in the show notes of the podcast and YouTube, so everyone can have a look at it.
Then you can all come to the Martin Parr Foundation in April next year.
Perfect.
We can all have a big party and have a beer.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice.
Fishing and film.
Brilliant.
Sweet.
Fishing and film.
Is that going to be like at the amusement parks, when you've got to hook a duck?
You know what?
Hook a pint.
You know what? I was thinking about this because one of the shows they had Splat the Rat at Martin Parr Foundation, which was great.
Yeah.
And I was sort of thinking, what can we do that would be fishing related?
Yeah. Everyone goes home with a penny goldfish.
Yeah, that would be great. Something like that. I don't know how sort of circus vibes to go.
Yeah.
Full on. You can knock a tin of tuna off the shelf. One of those.
Yeah, something
like
really unsustainable.
Yeah, something terrible.
Yeah.
It's
a fine line.
Maybe don't go.
We've got to tread here.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We'll work on it.
We'll come up with something.
We'll repurpose old baked beans tins, but the short ones.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, cool.
Okay, make it sustainable. Yeah.
Get you in that little sun hat that you mentioned earlier on the front on the picture of it.
Oh.
Do you still have that sun hat?
No, it died a death.
Oh no!
It got wet. Got wet at a festival. Lost the shape. It was sad.
That is a shame. There we go.
Oh,
I was just going to say, don't forget to follow John on all his channels. Check his work out. Send him some Monster Munch if you fancy.
Yeah, I'm always open for Monster Munch.
There you go.
Sponsorship.
I like scampi fries as well.
Oh yeah, my kind of guy. So good.
Yeah, I feel like I learned a lot about pub snacks doing
I was
the pub
going to
stuff.
say, classic pub snack, the scampi fries, isn't it?
Love me a
Scampi fries or jalapeno pretzels.
Ooh, that's a bit more new age.
I was going to say it's a little more like hipster craft beer pub snacks, isn't it? A good one.
Well, I don't like craft beer, so give me jalapeno pretzels.
I do really like the pretzels. I just find that I just cannot stop. I just keep going with them.
Yeah, that's true.
And they give you the tiniest bag.
Yeah.
Like, no, I want the big one.
I will give a big shout out to Johnny's Spicy Rings as well.
If
you've not heard of them or come across them yet, they're just this bright red packet of crisps. Well, they're like little corn snacks. They're like rings.
Yeah. Like onion ring type things,
Yeah. Right, and they're just called Johnny's Spicy Rings. They just dissolve into nothing. So it's just a packet of E numbers.
Yeah.
Nice.
Amazing.
Bright red E numbers that you just sort of dissolve into your mouth.
So good.
Perfect.
It's great.
Where are these available? Have you got a favourite corner shop in Bath that does these?
Or pub?
Just a couple of the pubs in Bath are doing them. They're around.
All right.
If you see them.
Okay, Johnny's
it's sort of like underground crisps.
Right.
It's not like your Walkers or your come on.
Burt's always pops up these days. Burt's,
it's
McCoy's and the likes.
It's new.
Okay.
Or maybe they're not new. I don't know. They're kind of
independent, underground, punk snacks.
Yeah. Punk snacks,
nice.
baby. Johnny's Spicy Rings.
I feel like we need to do an episode on punk snacks.
I think we should.
Okay.
With John again. In a pub.
Yeah. We should definitely do a pub episode.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. Yeah.
That would be cool.
Good. Mainly just because we all like being in pubs.
Yeah. Correct. There we go.
Yeah.
We'll just shoehorn it into like making work or something.
Yeah, we'll find something to talk about. I'm sure we can.
I could stand outside a pub for one of your pictures if you need more.
Yeah, well, there's a new one coming up, so
let us know. We'll be there.
We're gonna hopefully photograph the Royal Oak in Bath soon. So
nice,
brilliant.
Another good. It's all community pubs. Independent community type vibe.
Yeah,
amazing.
Cool.
Thanks for everyone for joining us for episode 9. The next episode is episode 10. I was like, no, I haven't fully decided what we're doing for episode 10 yet.
And
but
you'll find out what happens later.
What we probably are going to do is we'll do episode 10 and then we'll probably take a short break over summer, just during our busy period, and we may or may not be moving premises. Ooh. exclusive information there. So we'll probably take a short break before we come back with another episode, which will likely be episode 11. I suspect after 10,
ideally.
Yeah.
Masterful.
We'll see how it goes. Anyway, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you guys soon.
Thank you, John.
Bye.
Thank you, John.
Cheers, John.
Thanks for having me.
Laters.
Bye. This has been Voice Notes from the Lab, from the folk who develop your film at Jack's Lab. For those who don't know us, we're an independent photographic film processing lab in the heart of Bristol. You can find out more details about the lab, including prices and our processes, at jackslab.co. Thanks again for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review. It helps massively with reaching a wider audience and getting to know what you like and dislike about it. You can subscribe to the series via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or pretty much wherever you get your podcasts from. And don't forget to tell your friends.